Cute and kitschy Christmas projects today, including my favorite retro snowman and a kickin' 60s vinyl boot. Welcome to Up All Night DIY. I'm Monica. Thanks for joining me. We're starting with my all-time favorite retro snowman. Let's get into it. 2 weeks ago, I used this adorable snowman in my snow globe project. Last year, I made a version of him in wood, this guy here. I'll link that video in case you're interested. So I thought, I need to make him in clay. So that's what we're doing today. I'm going to use the 2.4 inch foam ball for his body that I flattened on bottom by tapping it on the table. And I have a 1 inch for his head, which I'll press a flat spot into on the top where his hat will sit. We'll need some Model Magic clay, or whatever clay you prefer. I'm also going to use a small piece of a skewer, some toothpicks, and a wee bit of armature wire too. Right, so I grab a big old handful of clay, and I need it to condition it. I roll it flat. I wrap my large ball with the clay, pressing it to ensure adhesion, and I'm going to cut away the excess. And I'll smooth the clay by rolling it in my hands and around on the table a wee bit too. You know the deal. This doesn't need to be perfect because it's supposed to be a snowball, so they tend to have a couple lumps here and there. I'll repeat the process on the small ball. Looks pretty good and smooth. I cut a couple of inches from a skewer to attach his head to his body. I'm going to push that into the center top of the body to create a hole. Then I'll do the same thing on the bottom of the small ball. I want there to be some space between his head and his body. We need that space for his scarf. To make that scarf, we'll roll a log of clay, also known as a cane, coil, or snake, depending on the day. They're all interchangeable. This is just going to be the bit that wraps around his neck. We'll do the scarf tails in a Wemo. Right, so we're going to wrap the log around to fill in the space between his head and body. Let's roll another log for his arms, and then we're going to cut those in half. The rounded end will be his hands. This looks like it's a wee bit long, so I'm going to cut some of that off, and I'll cut the other one to match. Now, his arms will be down by his side because they'll be resting on the sled. So let's bend his hands up into like a 90-degree angle-ish. And I'm going to press the arms to the body to make sure that they're really well stuck on there. I'll use my ball tool to incorporate the clay of the arm with that on the body, and I'm just smoothing out the seam. Now I'll repeat this on the other side with the other arm. He looks a wee bit wonky at this point, but no worries, we'll sort that out. I'm going to pop a picture of him up here in the corner. And his legs, as you can see from the picture, are bent up to fit on the sled. So to get that look, we'll roll a ball of clay and cut it in half, which will give me 2 oval shapes. Stay with me here, gang. We're going to attach them both at the bottom of his belly, like so. Just going to press them on there. I'm going to roll over the seam with my ball tool, but you can also use the handle of a paintbrush to incorporate the clay. That works just as well. To make his feet, I've cut a smaller clay ball. I'm going to cut that in half, and I'll roll those 2 halves into smaller balls. I find it easier to get 2 balls the same size by cutting a larger ball in half. That's why I did this. I broke a toothpick in halves, and I'm going to push them into his legs to attach his foot to the toothpick. And then we'll incorporate it just like before. You feel me? To make the brim of his hat, I cut a circle from some flattened clay. I actually used a juice bottle cap as a cookie cutter here. We'll roll a thick, short, kind of squatty marshmallow shape for the crown part of his hat. I'm going to slightly narrow the bottom end to give it that classic top hat shape as per the illustration of my snowman. Once again, I'm using a piece of a toothpick to anchor his hat. I push it into the center of his head, but kind of on a wee angle because the illustration has his hat tipped back a smidge, so we want to get that same vibe. I position the brim, and I'm going to fuss with it just a wee touch, then we'll push the crown into place. Okay, we're going to push that on there, and you know the deal. We're going to be incorporating it by rolling over the seam, just like we do with all the pieces. To make the tails of his scarf defy gravity, I shaped some armature wire into a key shape. I guess you could say that. It's kind of key shape. And this is a pliable wire found alongside the clay at the craft stores. Really easy to bend. Okay, so this is going to add some structure to the scarf. I made a template for my triangle here. I'm going to cut this twice from clay. Right, so we're going to sandwich the wire between the two clay triangles, and I'm going to cut away some excess at the top and expose some of the wire at the bottom. I'm going to push that clay together, close it up a wee bit there to cover the wire, and I'm going to roll over the seams. Let's add some details. I'll score the clay to make it look like it's the two tails of a scarf, and I'm going to add a wee bit of fringe. I push the exposed wire into the side of his scarf, and to secure it, I'll add another log of clay around his neck. So basically, we're just repeating the first scarf step. You'll see what I mean. To see, I'm just wrapping another piece right around there, and I'm going to make sure that that really keeps that tail secure and in place. There we go. That should work, hopefully. He needs ear muffs. Just punching out some small circles. See? Muffs. And we're going to push those into place like so. The fact that snowmen wear earmuffs and scarves is my absolute favorite thing. I think that's hilarious. I don't know why, but like, why do they need to keep their ears warm? They're snowmen. Just cracks me up. I'm easily entertained. Now I'm going to roll out 4 wee balls. One will be his nose, the rest will be buttons, and we're going to add them after they're dry. His sled is just a disc of clay that I punched out using a jar lid. So we're going to let this stuff dry overnight. In the meantime, on to DIY 2. Look at these kickin' Christmas boots. I love, love, love these. I still have my mom's boots that she had for me and my sister. We're going to dupe these, but in ornament size. So I made a template for the boot, which I'm going to link in the description box. Print yourself a copy on cardstock. You can make these as small or as large as you like, up to you. Cut them out. Go to Dollar Tree, get yourself some red vinyl and some white vinyl from the Crafter Square section. So here are our templates. You can see I did 2 different sizes. I'm going to use the bigger size though. Grab yourself a piece of red vinyl, fold it in half, vinyl sides together. You're going to trace your boot onto the vinyl. Cut it out. Now you have 2 boots. Set those aside. Take your small boot section and trace that onto some white vinyl the same way you just did with the red, and cut those out. Okay, so here you go. This is what you should have so far. Now take one of those white boots, line it up on the red boot, I'm going to remove the backing paper and stick it to the red boot and repeat this on the other one. Now grab those red vinyl boots, align them paper side together this time, and I clip them together at the top just to make them easier to handle. I'm going to use some fabric glue to adhere the two sides together, but I will leave the top open. So this is the quickest, easiest way to do this. However, you can stick your vinyl to some cardstock, trace the boot onto the cardstock, then cut it out, which was my original plan, but then I thought, why go to the extra work and use up extra supplies? This will work too. But you do have to remember that the vinyl is meant to come away from this paper, so you kind of want to be aware of that. I really don't think it'll be an issue though. I created my design in Silhouette and cut it from white vinyl, but you can use stickers or paint or hand cut a vinyl design if you don't have a vinyl cutter. I'm going to burnish it onto the boot, and I have one for each side. I tied a loop into the middle of a length of baker string, and now I am going to trim out the back edge of my boot with the baker string. I'm just going to use some fabric glue and go right up to one side so that the loop is in the middle of the top of the boot, and then I'll run the string down the other side. Easy. I'm going to outline the top with gold paint instead of the baker string, just to mix it up a wee bit. Let's outline the white part of the boot too. I'm just adding a little bit of flair with the gold, nothing too over the top. And finally we need a jingle bell. So I poke a hole in the boot with my needle, and my belt is on a piece of wire. I'm going to thread that through the hole and twist the wire together, and we're done. Look at this. I love this, and it's so easy, so cool. DIY 3 Faux Retro Ornament Boxes. So I designed these in Photoshop. The one on the left is an original design by me. The other one is an actual picture of a vintage box. So what I did is cut out a circle, as you can see, for the window part of our box. Now I made a couple of these last year, so I'm going to link that video too, just so you can take a look at those. They turned out really cool. We need to score our folds on the box. So I'm going to come in here at 6 inches and at 5 inches and score the spine of the box. Again, I'm going to put all the measurements in the description box for you in case you want to make these. The next thing I'm going to do is go around all 4 sides and score my paper at 1 inch. Now this is really heavy duty cardstock. I think it's 80 weight, so these make perfect little boxes. Before I do anything else, I want to embellish the front with some glitter and some doodads. This is the one that's the original artwork from a tinsel box. So I want to add some silver glitter to this. I'm just going to use some Mod Podge and follow the glitter on the box and sprinkle on some silver glitter. I'm going to add some more up here around the words at the top. Now I'm going to bring in some red glitter, and I'm going to add that to the word icicles at the bottom. Anything goes here. You can do whatever you like. You can add glitter or not. You can use it just as is. Whatever blows your hair back. And since we have the glitter already out, let's work on our second box. This is the one that I designed myself in Photoshop. On this one, I'm going to add some red glitter to the ornament in the center, and I'm going to dot on some red glitter to the berries. I also added some glamour dust here and there, and I have a 3D element that's going to go on. I added glitter to that as well. But again, it's personal preference, whatever you want to do. So now I'm going to go around and I'm going to fold my paper at all of those square marks. You know what, I'm looking at this and I feel like this section here needs some kind of trim. So I have here 2 pipe cleaners that I've twisted together, red and green metallic. I'm going to outline that opening with these. I'm going to use a little bit of hot glue, outline that area, and just stick that pipe cleaner right around there. Let me cut away the excess. Yeah, I like that much better. It really needed something there, don't you think? To create the box flaps, we are going to cut from the edge of the paper up to the fold. And there are 4 places we're going to cut on each of the long sides. So right here in the center and on each of the ends. This is going to give us the flaps that we need. Well, you'll see. I'm going to fold those flaps to the inside of the box and add some glue tape. I'm going to do that to these end flaps first, and then I'm going to fold up that end and attach them to the sides like this, just lining up the corners. Now I'll do the same thing at the other end, folding in the flaps, adding the tape, and attaching the corners. Now we're going to do the spine. So I'm going to add the tape to the flaps, and I'd like to add these flaps to the top of the box. Doesn't really matter, it's just the way I do it. We're going to fold those up and attach them, and then we can fold up our box and close it up. Look at that, fits perfectly. Way easier than trying to find real vintage boxes. You feel me? For the backing part of the icicle box, I'm going to use some of this silver mylar. Makes sense, right? Looks like icicles. So I'm just going to use some of that glue tape, kind of go around the edges and a little bit in the middle, and I'll attach the mylar to the center. Do you remember tinsel? Silver icicle tinsel? Oh God, I used to love it. Today it's considered tacky, but back in the day, we loved it. Loved putting it on the tree. Now check this out, you guys. I got these really cool vintage snowman pieces from a shop on Etsy called Chocolate Letters. I'll link the shop. Look how cute. Love him. I got 6 of them. And she was really affordable too, so I highly recommend. I'm going to add this guy into the little opening of our box. Let's just see, where do we want him to go? Too cute. I've cut down some pieces of glue stick, which I'm going to use to kind of elevate him a wee bit. This trick I got from my girl, Indie Annie Jones. Check her out too. She's fabulous. I'm going to glue that little piece of glue stick in here to the back of the box. Let's close this up to see where he's going to sit. Yeah, I think that looks good. So now I'm going to glue him into place. Just going to add a little hot glue to this little glue stick piece. And I'm going to pop him on there. He needs some other doodads around him. So I have a couple of pieces here that we're going to stick alongside him. Now, we have this really cool place here where I live called Kindy's, and it's like this big Christmas warehouse, opens the day after Halloween. So I went a couple days ago, me and my husband. I picked up some of these picks, all kinds of really cool stuff. Great retro kind of 60s picks, and you know, tacky. I was looking for tacky. So yeah, I grabbed a bunch of picks, and I am going to cut bits and bobs off of the various picks, and we're going to add them into this little diorama. For this guy, I'm going to add this little fir branch and a couple of little Christmas balls that are on the pick, and I think that'll be perfect. I'm going to hot glue those right into place. And I want to shout out Rachel, who's a local viewer, who reminded me about Kindy's. She was like, I'm surprised you never mentioned Kindy's. And I was like, oh, I gotta go. They just opened. So that's what we did last weekend. Ran the Kindy's. Right, so I think that's it. I think this guy's done. Oh, you know what? Yep, I forgot about this little thing. It's a little piece of plastic. what do you call it, holly berries. My girlfriend Bern gave these to me. So I'm going to pop that right at the top. Yeah, perfect. Now this is done. What could be kitschier or cuter? Love, love, love. My second box, I'm going to use this glittery blue paper as the backdrop. Now this is a heavier cardstock, so I'm going to use some fabric glue to stick this guy down. The backing paper gets centered in between the folds on the box. Now I'm just going to cut those flaps in the box, again from the edge up to where the score line is, and we'll fold this box up. I'm going to hot glue another one of those darling little vintage snowmen on here, again using a little piece of glue stick to give them some elevation. I'm going to add some silver branches that I cut off a pick from Kindy's behind him. And then we're going to glue a glittery poinsettia next to him. So here's the 3D element that I designed. I'm going to stick it right here on the front of the box. Made it look like it's a bow. It says deck the halls. We're just going to glue it right here. Again, I'm adding one of those little glue stick pieces. Give it some dimension. I'm going to pop that in place. And this guy is done. I really love this craft. I think these look great on tiered trays and little nooks and nestled in the branches of the tray. They're really cute, so easy to make, and I just love them. Let me know what you think. Meanwhile, back at the North Pole, our snowman is all ready to get painted. Now he's good and dry. The only thing is there's some cracking around his hat because for some reason I picked him up by his hat. Yeah, don't do that. No biggie though, because that's going to get covered and glued, so he'll be fine. I'm going to give everything below his hat a couple of coats of white paint. Everything. I'm going to give his hat 2 coats of charcoal gray. I always like to come in around the edges and kind of outline them first. Otherwise, I don't know. I have a tendency to overpaint, so this keeps me within the perimeter. You feel me? Once that's done, I fill in the rest of the hat with some paint, and again, 2 coats. His wee sled is going to get 2 coats of Ceramcoat watermelon. And since we have the watermelon on the go, and as per our illustration, I'm going to paint in his earmuffs, and his scarf is going to get some red stripes. I used a blue pencil to sketch in his features, and now I'm going to paint in his eyes and his lashes with some charcoal. I'm using a 000 detail brush for this. And we can't forget his little eyebrows. Just dash those on there. I'm using a Q-tip here to apply his watermelon cheeks. So right under his eye, just going to dab on a little circle. Yeah, there we go. You can use the back of a paintbrush handle for this too. I just had the Q-tip handy. So there we go. Looks cute. I'm going to add some white dots to the bottom of his cheeks to kind of make them look like a crescent shape as per the original illustration. And he's going to get a watermelon smile too. So just a big old U shape. Pulling out the flitting medium to add some shading and detail. I'm going to prep my brush with the flitting medium, this clear gel here. I'm going to really get a good healthy coat on there. You guys know the deal. I'm going to side load, scooping up some paint on the corner of my brush. I'm going to stroke that on my plate to load the bristles and blend the medium with the paint. That gives me a gradation of color. Darkest where the paint is on the corner of the brush, and it fades out as it moves toward the center of the brush. Holding the pink corner of my brush where I want my darkest shadow, I'm going to float right along his hat here, and then I am going to go around his face and around his body, everywhere where on the picture there is some blue hue. I'm going to pop the picture up again for you so you can see. I love this color blue. As you know, it's Tropic Bay, and they discontinued it, but I did find a couple bottles in my stash, so I'm good for a wee while yet. Anyway, floating around his face. I'm also going to float around his scarf. I don't think the picture has the blue on his scarf, but I'm adding blue. I'm going to shade anywhere where there's a crease and anywhere that I feel could use it. That's how I roll. Now I'm going to come in with some Ceramcoat Rain Gray, and I'm going to go back over everywhere where I just laid blue shading. I'm going to go over it with Rain Gray. Normally in these situations, you know I'd use my Hippo Gray, but I thought that would be too dark in this situation, so I'm going with Rain Gray. I just feel like it's a little more subtle, and it just looks better. I think he's looking pretty cute, and I'm just going to feather that color out. If it's too dark anywhere, I just take a clean brush with only medium on it and I feather out that paint. It acts almost like an eraser and it really can tone down your color. Easy enough to do. Now that all the shading is finished, I'm going to hit him with a top coat of Deco Art Multi-Purpose Sealer in satin. I'm just going to pounce it on with a cosmetic sponge. The sled and all the little doodads that I'm going to be adding, like his nose and buttons, they're all going to get a coat as well. He's going to get a red metallic pipe cleaner hat band. This is going to hide that crack and also, jazz up his hat, right? Make it more festive. I'm going to add some little holly leaves to the top of the hat here. And I have a metallic red bead I'm going to add to mimic holly. Just one. Now we can pop on his wee nose. I painted the nose and the buttons with charcoal, so we're just going to stick that right there on his face, where the nose goes, usually. To glue him to a sled, I'm going to use both Fabric Fix and a dot of hot glue for the instant grab. To add a frosty element, I'm going to use some Snow Tex. I'm just going to dab some on his hat and some on his sled. And as a final touch, I'm going to sprinkle on some of this Dollar Tree snow to give it a little glisten. And that's it, folks. This retro happy snowman is ready to go sledding. I love him. Let me know if you love him too. Let's take a final look at today's project. Here's Snowden, that's his name I decided, on his wee sled. Just love him. And of course we have our Kickin' 60s boots. I love these. I loved all these projects. These are just too cool. And we have here our ornament boxes with that little retro snowman. And as I mentioned, I will link all of my supplies, and I'll also link the Etsy shop where I got this guy in the description box for you. Each one of these projects really made me happy. I so enjoyed making them. I hope you guys liked them. Please drop a comment. Let me know what you think. I have lots more Christmas projects in the coming weeks, so be sure to check back in. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe, and all that good stuff. Stay creative, my friends. Thanks for hanging with me. See you next time. Up all night with Monica.